Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. We are giving you a recap of what we covered some few minutes ago. Basically, this summary will cover three areas. One, objections that were raised by the defense team on Monday. Then the compliance by the General Court Martial. And then the turn for the prosecution team that comprised of two legal personnel, one representing public rights, the second one representing private rights. If you could recall last week, this week on Monday, during the first appearance of the main suspect, the GCM was rejected on a number of grounds. It is composition in terms of duplication of duties. One was doubling as a prosecutor, a member of the court martial as well as an investigator. Then the naming and the titles, you could all remember that. Now, in compliance with objections raised by the defense team, the General Court Martial went and made the following corrections. The title of the person heading the General Court Martial is now called the President of the General Court Martial, not Chairman of Investigation Committee. In the initial session, there was no legal advisor appointed to the GCM. Now we have a legal advisor appointed. The person who was having two roles now is playing on one role. He will be sitting on the board as a member. That's on the side of the defense team. So that meant when these areas were read out by the President of General Court Martial, the defense team was asked if they were still opposing the composition of the court martial, but they said no. They said they were no longer objecting the composition of the court martial. Then the defense team went ahead and made a request. They wanted to know who was the complainant, because for a legal process to go ahead, there must be a complainant. And during the presentation, there was no indication that someone came forward complaining that his or her employees had been murdered. And therefore they requested for authorization letter from complainant to be presented before the court in the next session. That authorization from the complainant should either be given to the legal person representing the prosecution team or to the company that employed the three employees that were murdered in our conflict. Now, if you could remember, there were also some requests that were made by defense team. The following were rejected. The defense team wanted the suspect to be transferred from military intelligence detention to military police detention facility. It was rejected on grounds for his safety. So the suspect will remain in military police custody, in military intelligence custody. However, visitations are allowed upon approval by the General Court Martial. If there is any relative that would like to visit the main suspect, that person should write a letter requesting for approval for the suspect to be visited. There was a second request. They had questioned the constitutional right of the CDF to form a General Court Martial. They revisited the issue and they said their request was rejected because a General Court Martial for an officer from the rank of brigadier and above is formed by the Commander-in-Chief, and that's in case His Excellency the President as the Commander-in-Chief of SPDF. For any officer below the rank of Colonel, a General Court Martial is formed by the Chief of Defense Forces, and Article 39 of SPLA Act 2009 as amended in 2002 and therefore the formation of General Court Martial to try Private Yagaram Yak is within the constitutional powers of the Chief of Defense Forces. Now it was the turn for the prosecution team that comprised of a legal person representing private rights and another one public rights. They made the following requests. One, I think they put the cart before the horse. They gave a narration on how the main suspect went up to the place where he had committed the crime, how he ordered them out of the car at gunpoint, how he made them to lie on their stomachs and shot them one by one, how he commandeered the vehicle for the victims and drove all the way up to Apet Bridge, where he was apprehended by forces from 3rd Infantry Division. While he was on the run, he was also being pursued from the original place. And after shooting his victims, the prosecution team claimed that the prime suspect took 2 smartphones from his victims. Now, I say the prosecution team put the cart before the horse. After making the presentations, he had demanded for a death sentence to be carried out by firing squad. Now, they said they wanted more time, the prosecution team. They did not want the case to go ahead. They said they wanted more time for the following reasons. One, they said they wanted the exhibits to be presented. Exhibits include the gun which was used to commit the crime, the 2 phones that were taken from the deceased by the suspect, then the witnesses that were at the scene when the crime was being committed, and the vehicle that was broken into and commandeered but recovered. So these 4 things, they say they wanted these 4 things to be presented. And as a result, they requested for the session to be adjourned for 2 more weeks so that time is given for evidence to be collected and brought to Juba. You know, all the witnesses are still in Warab, especially the relatives of the 4th deceased, a South Sudanese. His relatives are in Warab. There are witnesses, so that process also requires time for the witnesses to be lifted from Warab, to be brought here, for the vehicle to be driven all the way from wherever it was up to here. They requested for 2 weeks, and as a result, that permission was granted. The next session will resume on the 10th of February 2023. Thank you very much.